The text message from Jake lit up my phone's screen at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Family dinner this Saturday. My aunt and uncle are visiting from Oregon. Mom wants you to come. You free? I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. After 11 months of dating Jake, I had only met his parents twice, once briefly when they picked him up from my apartment, and another time at a crowded restaurant where conversation barely went beyond pleasantries. His mom, Patricia, had been polite but distant both times. She would smile when she looked at me, but it never quite reached her eyes. Yes, I would love to come, I typed back, adding a heart emoji before deleting it. Too eager, I thought. The rest of the week passed in a blur of anxiety and excitement. Jake and I had been talking more seriously about our future lately. Just 3 weeks earlier, we had spent an entire Sunday afternoon looking at apartments online, bookmarking the ones that caught our eye. He had even started leaving extra clothes at my place, and I found myself buying his favorite coffee creamer without thinking about it. What should I wear? I asked Jake on Friday night as we sat on my couch sharing a bowl of popcorn while watching a movie neither of us was really paying attention to. Just be yourself, he said, wrapping his arm around me. They are going to love you once they get to know you better. My dad already thinks you are great, and my sisters have been asking when you are coming around again. I leaned into his warmth, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with the fabric softener his mom used on his clothes. What about your mom? She always seems so careful around me. Jake was quiet for a moment, his fingers absently playing with my hair. She just takes time to warm up to people. She was the same way with my sister Emma's boyfriend at first, and now she treats him like her own son. You will see. Saturday morning arrived with an unseasonably warm October day. I changed clothes 3 times before settling on a navy blue sweater dress that Jake had complimented before, paired with brown boots and simple jewelry. I wanted to look put together but not overdressed, friendly but respectful. Jake picked me up at 4:30, looking handsome in his button-down shirt and dark jeans. You look perfect, he said, kissing my cheek as I slid into the passenger seat of his Honda. I brought flowers for your mom and a bottle of wine, I said, adjusting the bouquet of fall mums in my lap. Is that too much? It is perfect. She loves flowers, especially mums. They remind her of her grandmother's garden. The 20-minute drive to his childhood home in the suburbs felt both too long and too short. Jake filled the silence with stories about his Aunt Carol and Uncle Mike, who were visiting from Portland. They have been married for 32 years, he said. Carol is my dad's sister and she is hilarious. You will love her. She tells the most embarrassing stories about my dad when they were kids. As we pulled into the driveway of a charming colonial house with a wraparound porch, I could see warm light glowing from the windows and hear the sound of laughter drifting from inside. Jake's younger sisters, Emma and Sophia, were visible through the front window, gesturing animatedly as they talked. Ready? Jake asked, squeezing my hand. I took a deep breath and nodded. Ready. The front door opened before we could even knock. Emma, who was 24 and worked as a graphic designer, greeted us with a huge smile. Finally, we have been waiting for you too. The house smelled like roasted chicken and apple pie with underlying notes of cinnamon and vanilla candles. Family photos lined the hallway walls, showing Jake and his sisters at various ages, gap-toothed school pictures, prom photos, graduation ceremonies. I could see Jake's features in his father's younger face and his gentle nature in his mother's smile in the older photos. Sarah. Jake's dad, Robert, appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron that read Grill Master and wiping his hands on a dish towel. So good to see you again. How have you been? I have been wonderful, thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Thank you so much for having me. I handed him the wine and turned to offer the flowers to Patricia, who had emerged from the kitchen behind him. These are beautiful, thank you, Patricia said, accepting the flowers with what seemed like genuine appreciation. Mums are my favorite. Let me put these in water. For a moment, I felt my shoulders relax. Maybe Jake was right. Maybe she just needed time. The living room was warm and inviting, with family photos on every surface and a fire crackling in the fireplace. Aunt Carol turned out to be exactly as Jake had described, a woman in her early 60s with laugh lines around her eyes and a quick wit. Uncle Mike was quieter but kind, asking thoughtful questions about my job as a marketing coordinator at a local nonprofit. So you help raise money for the animal shelter? Sophia, who was 21 and still in college, asked with interest. That must be so rewarding. I volunteer at the Cat Cafe downtown sometimes. It really is, I said, feeling myself warming up to the conversation. We just had our biggest fundraising event of the year last month. We raised enough money to expand the kitten nursery and hire 2 new veterinary assistants. That is amazing, Carol said. Jake mentioned you organized the whole thing yourself. That takes real skill. I glanced at Jake, surprised and touched that he had been talking about my work to his family. He winked at me from across the room where he was helping his dad arrange chairs around the dining room table. As we moved to the dining room for dinner, I felt more confident than I had all week. The table was set beautifully with Patricia's good china and cloth napkins. Steam rose from dishes of roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and fresh rolls. It looked like something from a magazine. Sarah, you sit here next to Jake, Patricia directed, pulling out a chair. Carol, you and Mike sit across from them. I settled into my seat, smoothing my dress and placing my napkin on my lap. The conversation flowed easily. Carol shared stories about her garden in Oregon. Uncle Mike talked about his recent retirement from teaching high school history, and the sisters debated whether their college football teams would make it to bowl games. Jake's hand found mine under the table, his thumb tracing small circles on my palm. I squeezed back, feeling grateful for his presence and increasingly hopeful about the evening. The food was delicious, and I made sure to compliment Patricia on everything from the perfectly seasoned chicken to the homemade rolls. She seemed pleased by the praise, sharing her recipe for the green bean casserole with me when I asked. My mother-in-law taught me to make this when Robert and I were first married, she said. It took me 3 tries to get it right. The trick is not to overbake the onions on top. I will have to remember that, I said. Jake has been asking me to cook more, but I am still learning. My mom was not much of a cook, so I am starting from scratch. Well, practice makes perfect, Patricia replied, though something in her tone had shifted slightly. Cooking is one of those skills you really need when you are building a life with someone. I nodded, filing away her comment to think about later. Around us, the conversation continued, but I found myself watching Patricia more carefully, trying to read the expressions that crossed her face when she thought no one was looking. The main course was nearly finished when Patricia stood up to start clearing plates. Let me help you, I offered, rising from my chair. Oh no, you are a guest, she said firmly, pressing gently on my shoulder to encourage me to sit back down. Emma, Sophia, come help me in the kitchen. We will get dessert ready. As the 3 women disappeared into the kitchen with stacks of plates, I found myself seated between Jake and Carol with Uncle Mike and Robert across the table. The men had started discussing the upcoming election, and I listened politely while fidgeting with the edge of my napkin. So Sarah, Carol said, turning to me with a warm smile, Jake tells me you 2 are thinking about finding a place together. How exciting. Are you looking at apartments or houses? My heart jumped a little at the question. I glanced at Jake, who nodded encouragingly. We have been looking at apartments mostly, I said. There is a really nice complex about halfway between both our jobs that has a great community garden and allows pets. We have been thinking about adopting a dog together. A dog, how wonderful, Carol exclaimed. Mike and I have had dogs our whole marriage. They really do become part of the family. What kind are you thinking? We went to the shelter last weekend just to look. Jake jumped in, his eyes lighting up. There was this golden retriever mix named Charlie who just stole our hearts. He is about 3 years old and so well behaved. Golden retrievers are perfect family dogs, Uncle Mike added. Smart, loyal, great with kids when that time comes. I felt my cheeks warm at the comment about kids, but it was not unpleasant. Jake and I had only briefly touched on the subject of children, but I could tell from the way he talked about his nieces and nephews that he wanted to be a father someday. That is still way down the road, I said with a laugh. But yes, we definitely want a dog that would be good with children eventually. From the kitchen came the sound of Patricia's voice, though I could not make out the words. Emma laughed at something, and I heard the clink of dessert plates being arranged. You know, Robert said, leaning back in his chair, I remember when Patricia and I got our first place together. We were so young and had no idea what we were doing. We bought this terrible used couch that was probably older than we were, and within a month, one of the legs broke and sent us both tumbling to the floor. Everyone laughed at the image, and I found myself relaxing again. These people were kind and welcoming, and I could picture myself becoming part of their family traditions and inside jokes. Jake showed me pictures of your first apartment, I said to Robert. The one with the orange shag carpet? Oh, that place was a disaster, Robert chuckled, but we were so proud of it. Our first real home together. Patricia cried when we finally moved out, even though we were going to a much nicer place. The kitchen doors swung open, and Patricia appeared carrying a beautiful apple pie, golden brown and still steaming. Emma followed with a stack of dessert plates, and Sophia brought up the rear with a container of vanilla ice cream. "This looks incredible," I said as Patricia set the pie in the center of the table. "Did you make this from scratch?" "Of course she did," Emma said proudly. "Mom makes the best pies in the county. She wins the blue ribbon at the fall festival every year." Patricia smiled at the praise, but I noticed she did not meet my eyes. "It is just a simple apple pie, nothing fancy." As she began cutting generous slices, Carol continued our earlier conversation. "So when are you two planning to make this move? Spring, summer?" "We were thinking maybe after the new year," Jake replied, accepting a plate from his mother. "That gives us time to save up for a security deposit and look around more." "That is smart," Robert nodded approvingly. "No rush. Better to take your time and find the right place." Patricia handed me a slice of pie topped with a scoop of ice cream, and I thanked her warmly. The pie was indeed delicious. The apples were perfectly spiced, and the crust was flaky and buttery. "This is amazing," I said after my first bite. "Would you be willing to share the recipe? I would love to learn how to make this." For a moment, something flickered across Patricia's face, surprise, maybe, or something else I could not quite identify. "Oh, it is a family recipe," she said carefully. "Passed down from my grandmother." "I understand," I said quickly, not wanting to overstep. "I just meant if you ever wanted to teach me sometime." I am always looking for new things to learn in the kitchen. The table fell quiet for a moment, and I wondered if I had said something wrong. Then Carol jumped back in, asking Sophia about her classes, and the conversation moved on. But I noticed Patricia glancing at me throughout dessert, her expression unreadable. When Jake got up to help his father with something in the garage, leaving me at the table with the women, I felt suddenly self-conscious. "So Sarah," Patricia said, setting down her fork and fixing me with a direct look, "what are your long-term career goals? Do you see yourself staying at the animal shelter?" The question felt like a test, though I was not sure what the right answer was supposed to be. "I really love the work I am doing now," I said honestly. "But eventually, I would like to move into a leadership role, maybe as a development director or even an executive director at a larger organization. I am thinking about going back to school for my master's degree in nonprofit management." "That sounds like it would require a lot of time and commitment," Patricia observed. "Graduate school, building a career, not much room for other priorities." I felt my stomach tighten slightly. "I think it is possible to have both a career and a family," I said carefully. "Lots of women do it successfully." "Some do," Patricia agreed, but her tone suggested she had doubts about my ability to be one of them. Emma, who had been listening to this exchange with growing discomfort, tried to change the subject. "Sarah, did Jake tell you about the time he tried to make dinner for us when Mom and Dad went out of town? He nearly burned down the kitchen making spaghetti." I laughed, grateful for the diversion. "He did not tell me that story. What happened?" But before Emma could answer, Patricia spoke up again. "Speaking of Jake's cooking disasters," she said, turning to Carol with a smile that did not reach her eyes, "you should have seen the girls he brought home in college. Always trying to impress us with how domestic they were, cooking elaborate meals and bringing homemade cookies." My heart started beating faster, sensing danger in the direction this conversation was heading. "Jake has always been a charmer," Carol replied diplomatically, clearly trying to keep things light. Patricia nodded, her smile growing sharper. "Oh yes, he certainly has his way with women. They all think they are so special, so different from the ones before." She paused, her eyes meeting mine directly. "But you know how young men are, always changing their minds about what they want." The room went completely silent. Emma and Sophia both stared at their mother in horror, while Carol looked like she wished she could disappear under the table. Then Patricia delivered the blow that would replay in my mind for days afterward. She turned to Carol with a casual laugh and said, "Oh, do not get too attached to her. She is probably just a phase like all the other girls before her." The words hit me like a physical slap. I felt my face burn with embarrassment and my throat close up with the effort of not crying. Everyone at the table heard it clearly. There was no pretending it had not happened. Emma gasped audibly. "Mom." Sophia looked mortified, staring down at her pie as if she could make herself invisible. Carol's mouth fell open in shock, and she started to say something, but Patricia just shrugged as if she had commented on the weather. I sat frozen in my chair, the bite of pie in my mouth suddenly tasting like sawdust. The room felt like it was spinning, and I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting to see how I would react. Part of me wanted to disappear into the floor, while another part wanted to stand up and defend myself. Instead, I sat there like a deer caught in headlights, my hands gripping my napkin so tightly my knuckles were white. Finally, Emma found her voice. "Mom, that was completely inappropriate," she said, her voice shaking with anger and embarrassment. Patricia looked genuinely surprised by the reaction, as if she could not understand why everyone seemed so upset. "What? I was just being realistic. Jake is young, and he has never been serious about anyone before. I am just saying Carol should not get her hopes up about wedding bells anytime soon." "That is not your place to say," Sophia whispered, still staring at her plate. Before anyone else could respond, Jake and his father returned from the garage, laughing about something as they walked back into the dining room. The moment Jake saw our faces, his smile disappeared. "What happened?" he asked, looking around the table at the tense expressions. I found my voice finally, though it came out smaller than I intended. "I need to use the restroom," I said, pushing back my chair on shaking legs. "Sarah," Jake started, reaching for my hand, but I was already moving toward the hallway. "Second door on the right," Emma called after me softly. I made it to the bathroom and locked the door behind me before the tears started. I pressed my hands against my face and tried to breathe deeply, but the humiliation was overwhelming. The woman who might have been my future mother-in-law had just dismissed me as a temporary inconvenience in front of his entire family. Through the thin walls, I could hear voices in the dining room, Jake's voice rising in anger, his father asking what was going on, Emma trying to explain. I caught fragments, completely out of line. "How could you? She is a guest in our house." But Patricia's voice rose above the others, defensive and unapologetic. "I do not see what the big deal is. I was just being honest. You all act like I said something terrible, but I am just looking out for Jake's best interests." By insulting his girlfriend at dinner, that was Sophia, sounding braver than I had ever heard her, I did not insult anyone. I just stated a fact. Jake has never brought a girl home who lasted more than 6 months. Why should this one be any different? Hearing myself referred to as this one was the final straw. I splashed cold water on my face, took one more look in the mirror at my red-rimmed eyes, and made a decision. I was not going back to that table. Quietly, I opened the bathroom door and crept toward the living room where I had left my purse and jacket. The voices from the dining room were getting louder. Jake was really upset now, his voice tight with anger as he defended me to his mother. "Sarah is not like the others," he was saying. "We have been together almost a year and we are talking about moving in together. She matters to me and you had no right to dismiss her like that." "Jake, honey," Patricia's voice was taking on a placating tone now, "I am just trying to protect you from making a mistake. You are young and you have your whole life ahead of you. There is no need to rush into anything serious with the first girl who comes along." "The first girl? Mom, I am 26 years old, not 16, and Sarah is not just some random girl. I love her." The words should have made my heart sore, but instead they made me feel worse. Jake was fighting for me, defending our relationship, and I was hiding in the hallway like a coward. But I could not face going back to that table, could not sit there pretending everything was fine while Patricia looked at me with those cold, dismissive eyes. I grabbed my purse and jacket from the coat closet and quietly slipped toward the front door. "Sarah?" Emma's voice stopped me just as my hand touched the doorknob. She had appeared in the hallway, her face full of concern and embarrassment. "Where are you going?" "I think it is best if I leave," I whispered, not trusting my voice to be steady. "Please do not go because of what she said. Jake is furious and Dad is reading her the riot act. She knows she was wrong." I could hear the sincerity in Emma's voice, and I appreciated that she was trying to make this better. But the damage was done. "I just cannot sit back down at that table right now," I said. "Please tell Jake I will call him later." Emma looked like she wanted to argue, but instead she pulled me into a quick hug. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "You did not deserve that." I squeezed her back, grateful for her kindness. "Thank you for sticking up for me." I slipped out the front door and practically ran to my car, which I had parked on the street earlier. My hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get the key into the ignition. As I finally started the engine, I saw the front door of the house open and Jake burst outside, looking around frantically. He spotted my car just as I was pulling away from the curb. I could see him in my rearview mirror, standing in the driveway with his hands on his hips, probably debating whether to run after me. The drive home was a blur of tears and replaying the scene over and over in my head. Patricia's voice echoed, "She is probably just a phase like all the other girls before her." The casual cruelty of it, the way she had said it like she was commenting on the weather, made my stomach turn. By the time I reached my apartment, I had gone through anger, sadness, and embarrassment about 10 times over. I changed into sweatpants and curled up on my couch with a cup of tea, trying to process what had just happened. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Jake, of course. I let it go to voicemail the first 3 times, but when he called for the 4th time in 10 minutes, I finally answered. Sarah, thank God. His voice was strained and upset. Why did you leave? I was looking everywhere for you. I could not stay there, I said simply, fresh tears starting. I could not sit at that table after what she said. I know, and I am so sorry. I cannot believe she said that. I told her exactly what I think of her comment, and so did everyone else. She knows she was wrong. Does she, though? I asked, wiping my nose with a tissue, because it sounded to me like she meant every word. And honestly, Jake, she might be right. Maybe I am just a phase. Do not say that, Jake's voice was fierce. Do not let her get in your head like that. You know how I feel about you. What we have is real and it matters. She was completely out of line. But what if she is right about the other girls? What if I am just the latest in a long line of girlfriends your family has had to endure? Jake was quiet for a long moment, and I could hear him sigh heavily. Yes, I have had other girlfriends, but none of them were serious. None of them mattered the way you matter. I have never talked about moving in with someone before. I have never brought someone to family dinners multiple times. I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. His words were exactly what I needed to hear, but the sting of Patricia's comment was still fresh. Your mom clearly does not see it that way. My mom does not get a vote in who I date or who I love, Jake said firmly. And I meant what I said in there. I love you, Sarah. I should have told you that before tonight, and I should not have let you find out during a fight with my mother, but it is true. Despite everything, I felt a small smile tug at my lips. I love you too, I whispered. Then do not let her ruin this for us, please. What she said was terrible, but it does not change anything between you and me. I wanted to believe him, but I could not shake the image of Patricia's face when she made that comment. The dismissive look, the casual cruelty. Jake, I need some time to think about this. Tonight was really hard for me. I understand, he said, though I could hear the disappointment in his voice. But please do not shut me out. We can get through this together. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment and tried to sort through my feelings. I loved Jake, that much was clear. But the thought of having to deal with his mother's hostility for years to come was daunting. What would happen at family gatherings, birthday parties, holidays? Would Patricia always see me as temporary, always be waiting for Jake to come to his senses and move on? I spent most of Sunday replaying the dinner in my mind, analyzing every look and comment from Patricia throughout the evening. I realized now that there had been signs I had missed or chosen to ignore. The way she had tensed when Jake mentioned our apartment hunting, her pointed questions about my career plans. The comment about cooking being important when building a life with someone. It all felt calculated now, like she had been building up to her cruel dismissal all evening. Jake called me 3 times throughout the day, but I let them go to voicemail. I knew I needed to talk to him eventually, but I was not ready yet. I needed to figure out how I really felt about what had happened and what it might mean for our future. By Sunday evening, I finally felt ready to listen to his messages. The first one was from Saturday night, about an hour after our phone conversation. Hey, it is me again. I just wanted you to know that I talked to my mom after you left. I made it very clear that what she said was unacceptable and that she owes you an apology. She's being stubborn about it right now, but I think she will come around. I hope you are okay. I love you. The second message was from Sunday afternoon. Sarah, I know you need space and I am trying to respect that, but I am worried about you. Emma wanted me to tell you that she and Sophia are both really upset about what happened. They think Mom was completely wrong and they want to make sure you know that. Please call me when you are ready to talk. The third message had come in just an hour before I listened to it. Okay, I am starting to get worried because you have not answered any of my calls. I know last night was awful, but please do not disappear on me. We need to talk about this. I am coming over if I do not hear from you by 8. I looked at the clock. It was 7:30. I quickly dialed his number. Sarah, he answered on the first ring, relief clear in his voice. I was about to get in my car. I am okay, I said, settling back onto my couch with a cup of chamomile tea. I just needed some time to process everything. I understand. How are you feeling now? I took a sip of tea and considered the question. Hurt, embarrassed, and honestly pretty angry. The more I think about it, the more I realize that what she said was not just rude, it was designed to humiliate me. I know, Jake said quietly. I have been thinking about it too, and I am furious with her. What she did was cruel and unnecessary. Has she said anything else about apologizing? Jake was quiet for a moment, and I knew the answer before he spoke. She is still insisting that she was just being honest and that everyone is overreacting. She says she did not mean to hurt your feelings, but she stands by what she said. The disappointment hit me like a punch to the stomach. So she is not sorry at all. She is sorry that you got upset, but she is not sorry for what she said. And that is not good enough. I told her that if she cannot apologize sincerely and treat you with respect, then she will not be seeing much of me either. I felt a flutter of gratitude mixed with concern. Jake, I do not want to come between you and your family. You are not coming between us, she is. By choosing to be cruel and then refusing to take responsibility for it. We talked for another hour, and I felt some of my resolve strengthening. Jake was clearly on my side, and knowing that his sisters were also appalled by their mother's behavior helped, but I also knew that this was just the beginning. If Patricia and I were going to have any kind of relationship in the future, she needed to acknowledge that what she had done was wrong. Monday morning brought an unexpected text message from Emma. Hey Sarah, I hope you are doing okay. I wanted you to know that Sophia and I both talked to Mom yesterday about what happened. We told her that what she said was not okay and that she needs to apologize. She is being stubborn, but I think she will come around eventually. Do not let her ruin what you and Jake have. He is crazy about you, and anyone can see how happy you make him. The message brought tears to my eyes. It meant a lot to know that Jake's sisters were standing up for me, even against their own mother. Tuesday afternoon, I was at work when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Jake's home number, his parents' house. My heart started racing as I debated whether to answer. Finally, curiosity won out. Hello, Sarah, this is Patricia. Her voice was stiff and formal. I wanted to call and clear the air about what happened at dinner. I gripped the phone tighter, trying to keep my voice steady. Okay. I think there was a misunderstanding about what I said. I was not trying to insult you personally. I was just sharing my observation that Jake has not been in many serious relationships. I felt my temper flare. This was not an apology, it was an excuse. Mrs. Mitchell, I do not think there was any misunderstanding. You called me just a phase in front of your entire family. That was not an observation about Jake's dating history, that was a dismissal of our relationship and my importance in his life. There was a long pause. I suppose I could have phrased it differently. You could have not said it at all, I replied, surprised by my own boldness. I have been nothing but respectful to you and your family. I brought flowers, I complimented your cooking, I tried to connect with everyone. I did not deserve to be humiliated at your dinner table. Another pause. You are right that you did not deserve to be embarrassed. That was not my intention. It was not exactly an apology, but it was closer than I had expected. I appreciate you saying that, but Mrs. Mitchell, I need you to understand that Jake and I are serious about each other. We love each other and we are building a future together. I am not going anywhere. I see, she said carefully. Well, I suppose time will tell. The comment stung, but I pressed on. I hope that you and I can find a way to have a respectful relationship moving forward, for Jake's sake if nothing else. Of course, Patricia said, though her tone suggested she was just going through the motions. I suppose I should invite you both for dinner again sometime. I think I will need some time before I am ready for that, I said honestly, but maybe we can start smaller, coffee sometime, just the two of us. The suggestion seemed to surprise her. Oh, well, I suppose we could do that. After we hung up, I sat at my desk feeling drained but somehow stronger. I had stood up for myself, set boundaries, and made it clear that I was not going to just disappear from Jake's life. Patricia might not like me and she might never fully accept our relationship, but she was going to have to learn to be civil. That evening when I told Jake about the phone call, he was both proud and frustrated. I am glad she called, even if it was not a real apology, he said. And I am proud of you for standing up for yourself, but I am also annoyed that she is still being so stubborn about this. It is going to take time, I said. She clearly had expectations about who you would end up with, and I do not fit that picture. But Jake, I need to know that you will continue to have my back if she does something like this again. Always, he said without hesitation. You are my priority, not keeping my mother happy. If she cannot learn to treat you with respect, then she will be seeing a lot less of both of us. 3 months later, Patricia and I did have that coffee. It was awkward and stilted, but we managed to have a civil conversation about neutral topics like the weather and her garden. She asked polite questions about my work, and I complimented her on a scarf she was wearing. It was not warm or friendly, but it was a start. Jake and I moved in together that spring, adopting Charlie, the golden retriever mix we had fallen in love with at the shelter. Patricia was polite when she visited our new apartment, even bringing a housewarming gift, a small potted plant for our kitchen windowsill. She never did give me a real apology for what she said that night at dinner. But over time, as it became clear that I was not going anywhere and that Jake was truly happy with me, her attitude slowly began to shift. She started including me in family text message chains about birthday plans and holiday schedules. She asked for my input on gifts for Jake. She even asked me to bring my famous chocolate chip cookies to the next family gathering. The night she called me just a phase was a turning point in our relationship and in my understanding of myself. I learned that I could stand up for myself with grace and dignity. I learned that love sometimes means having difficult conversations and setting firm boundaries. And I learned that Jake and I were strong enough as a couple to weather family drama and come out even closer on the other side. Looking back now, I am almost grateful for that terrible moment at the dinner table. It forced all of us to confront the reality of our relationships and decide what really mattered. Patricia learned that her son was serious about me and that her attempts to dismiss me would only push him away. Jake learned that he needed to be more proactive in defending our relationship, and I learned that I deserved to be treated with respect.